Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the podcast. I'm your host, Ajoe21love, here with episode number 81 of sorts of few topics. Bunch to go over today on the podcast. Um, as far as the NFL and NCAA is concerned, we had the college football playoffs are now in the books, and 1 week away, or from the end of the biggest regular season of the NFL. Now, depending on how you view it, I mean, the biggest has many different meanings, but the reason why this is the biggest per se is 18 weeks, 17 games per season for everyone. So you look at the schedules right now or the records of every team, and if you had not known that there was an extra game this season for everyone, and you thought, and you've been following the NFL for the last number of years, you would think the season is over. But no, we got one more week of the regular season. So, but nonetheless, got week 17 to go over. Got some good wild finishes as far as the aspect, and give my thoughts on college football national championship. First, though, I want to give my thoughts on, because it was literally announced a few hours after I posted episode number 80, but John Madden, the great presence, you can say he was the presence of the NFL for so long. Player, briefly, great coach, great broadcaster, and behind the game of Madden, which many play still to this day and will play so on and so forth. The game of Madden passed away last week at the age of 85. A big, I mean, we all, unless you're kind of living under a rock and don't follow football, we all pretty much saw the Madden documentary on Christmas. And, obviously a lot of stuff going into that day, Christmas. Also in the football world, you got Kurt Warner's movie made about his life. But saw the Madden documentary, and it was a great watch. You know, going through some of his moments, going through what he went through at the end of coaching the Raiders, and just the impact he made on so many people. It was great watch and see, but at the same time, you were nervous watching it because, Madden, he has really been out broadcasting for quite a while now. So you're watching documentary, and while it was a great piece and a great watch just to reflect on all he's done, you were a bit, I'm sure many weren't looking ahead, but you were nervous, like something must be up. Something, just worried about John Madden's health a bit. He's 85. You know, he's been through a couple surgeries, and you were just a bit nervous about the timing. And then comes Tuesday, and John Madden's passing. Really a blow to the NFL community and sports community and everyone who just related to Madden. It's just unfortunate, but his legacy will live on, whether it's through the NFL, through coaching, through the video game. He just had so much insight. I never actually saw a game of him live. I always, I really started watching the NFL when after he retired, but I always followed up with games here and there, playing football games of Madden, but never actually, watched the NFL until after he passed. But watching tidbits here and there uh, just shows you the kind of personality, and him being him was just all you could really ask for in a president like him. And he will be incredibly missed, but his legacy will only continue to live on. Now, with that intro and thoughts about Madden out of the way, now let's peer towards Friday. We had the college football playoffs rear around the corner, and ultimately it's Georgia and Alabama. Now, I'm not sure many are surprised. I would say, though, people probably disappointed, you know, because Georgia beat Michigan and Alabama beat Cincy. Now, first on Alabama Cincy, because that was the first matchup of the day. Cincy, was a great story. You know, then the only undefeated team left in college football. You know, had a good season. Luke Fickell, Desmond Ritter, their corners, Gardner, Bryant, being a really good Houston team in the American Conference Championship. Did well, but here against Alabama, their defense held their own for quite a while, but eventually the dam just breaks. You know, and 27-6, they kept them under 30 points in Cincy, but Alabama's the machine. And then what many people are hoping would be the closer game of the day. Georgia rebounded, and after that tough loss to Bama in the SEC title game, beat the Big Ten champs in Michigan and rolled past, and we will get the rematch of the SEC title game between Bama and Georgia. Now, the fact still remains that the college football playoff needs to be expanded. It needs to be expanded. But I think what people have the most issue with was the fact that Michigan was higher ranked than Alabama, and now, of course, Georgia was then the number one ranked team, but Michigan number 2, and they blew out Iowa. And Michigan was denied the 1 seed, and Bama leapfrogged them, and instead of getting the rematch on Friday, we're going to get in the national championship. Which, I mean, people will go into it more, the bias for the SEC, this and that. I mean, look, it's the national title game the committee wanted, and people will not want to hear that. And look, if you're a player, you're a coach, etc., you're going to not be upset about your team being in the national title game, or a family member or a fan. But at the same time, if you're unbiased to sport, you know that this is what ultimately the committee wanted, and it's just a disappointment that because Alabama is a machine, and I predict them to go over Cincy, but at the same time, it's just like it's kind of hard to be interested, especially if it takes out a little interest if you know the outcome. and you know what's going to happen. So that's just a little tidbit. And we got Alabama versus Georgia next week. Intriguing to see if Georgia can right the wrong, and because the Georgia defense against Michigan was more so the defense we saw all season long and not the defense we saw against Bama. So it's going to be intriguing to see what adjustments are made. And, you know, in 2017, the tough test in the SEC and the national championship when Tua made his debut was thrust in and ultimately won it for Bama in overtime. So just there's that. Now we got Stetson Bennett because he made mistakes against Bama in the SEC title game. But, you know, it's going to be intriguing because Bama has had performances against Cincy. They look more like a number one team than they have looked in many weeks, many games. So we'll see on that aspect. So now with that out of the way, next week 17 of the NFL season is now in the books. We had some stellar finishes and getting towards the finish line of the regular season. More games are getting more meaningful, and thus we got some surprising real finishes to games on Sunday and Monday. So, and we could be on the verge of some history being made next week in week 18. We'll see about that. But starting off, so Eagles won in Washington, being the football team 2016. At halftime, it was 16-7. Washington was doing well. Taylor Heineke was having a very good day to start, and then Eagles found the rhythm, and now Heineke was registering what could have been a game-winning drive, but ultimately sailed on John Bates, and thus it was picked by Rodney McLeod, and thus the Eagles win 9-7, and they clinch a playoff spot. They start off 2-5, 7-2 since, and Eagles are rolling. Their running game is operating well. Jalen Hurts got better since the way he started the season. Yeah, the Eagles will be a tough outing in the playoffs. Then we got Raiders beating the Colts 23-20 on a walk-off field goal by Daniel Carlson. Carson Wentz, he was able to return because of the new protocols, but it took a while for the offense to get rolling, but eventually it did. And then on the final drive, Derek Carr, him leading this team cannot be overstated. With a big pass to Hunter Renfrow, ultimately set him up. The touchdown getting called back might have been good by design, or yes, it took touchdown off the board, but it allowed them to keep the ball and milk the clock. To a last-second field goal by Carlson. The Raiders, 9-7, have won 3 straight and now face a win or go home Sunday Night Football next week against the Chargers in Vegas. So, gonna be fun. And then a bizarre turnabout. Buccaneers came back to beat the Jets 28-24. The Jets were up 24-10. It just felt like the Bucs were in a funk, but Gronk had a big day. Over 100 yards. And Tom Brady orchestrated a game-winning drive, coming down to 15 seconds left, throw it to Cyril Grayson, ultimately for a touchdown to win 28-24. But the biggest news coming out of that game, Antonio Brown, who we know since Pittsburgh has been causing issues, and last year was signed by the Bucs, and relatively ride the ship for at least that season, and he was a very orchestrated piece in that Super Bowl title victory for the Bucs and that run. This year, he has stellar start, but the ankle injury, which kept out many weeks, and then the false vaccination card, which caused him to be suspended. He came back, last week he had over 100 yards. But this week, while they were down 24-10, took off his gear after a sideline exchange. Took off his gear, threw his gloves and his shirt in the crowd, and he walked off out of the stadium shirtless. I'll have more on that situation in a bit, but moving on. Titans blew out the Dolphins relatively end their season 34-3. Tua played relatively clean through this 7-game win streak. And then, a pick in this game fall with a empty pass thrown by Tua that resulted in a fumble and a touchdown by Titans. It was a great story. Starting off 1-7, winning 7 straight. Okay, 8-7. Now they're 7th seed. They can make this interesting, but no. And it must have been sweet for Ryan Tannehill for 6 seasons playing with the Dolphins. Relatively was not adopted by the fan base. And yes, he didn't look good or as good as he has looked in Tennessee, but had to have been really sweet for Tannehill. Deontay Foreman had a career day, 123 yards. He's not Derrick Henry, but he has filled the shoes nicely for him in his absence. And again, having Ajoe Brown back, that defense is doing much better. And now they control the 1 seed in the AFC. So, Music City, Nashville. It's going to be interesting. And then, what was not interesting but still a joy to see, Patriots hang a 50 burger on the Jags, 50-10. Mac Jones rebounded. The defense of the Patriots very much rebounded from that losing in Buffalo last week. Harassed Trevor Lawrence. Trevor Lawrence did make a few nice plays in this game, but it's tough to see. For first overall pick, you want to see him improve, succeed, but in this case, it was not to be, because what was lying ahead for the Patriots. They clinched a playoff seed, and depending on next week, because the division is still alive and out for grabs between the Bills and the Patriots, so we'll see. The game of the day, no dispute. The Bengals in the jungle. The jungle came alive as the Bengals win 34-31 over Chiefs. Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow. If people weren't taking notice of them before, I don't know what you're doing. Unless you don't watch enough football. If you're just, I bet even their division has got to take notice of them. Because, they swept Pittsburgh. They swept Baltimore. And with this game, with Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase, what they did, Tyler Boyd had a touchdown. T. Higgins had a few. nice receptions, but in the jungle and what this happened, the way it happened, division title very much clinched for the Bengals. Just had a feeling about this game. And, you know, the discussion will, of course, be about the Bengals offense and the looks the Chiefs defense gave, but I want to give credit because they may also be the MVPs of this game very much as the offense was. The defense, it was 28-17 at the half. They basically blew out or shut out the Kansas City Chiefs offense in the second half. Now, credit, they were scored 28 points in the first half, but holding the Chiefs offense 3 points and a half, that just shows you. And Trey Hendrickson, a sack game record or streak came to an end, but he was very disruptive. And just hats off to both sides of the Bengals. And, hats off to the Bears. It's a sticky situation, but they beat the Giants 29-3. You know, it's good to see because we all know with the Matt Nagy situation, it's good to see them still fighting hard for their coach. I would say Robert Quinn, is now the all-time leader in sacks for the Bears. 18 sacks, breaking Richard Dent's record in 1984. Just hats off to him. The Giants, I don't know. Again, they're arguably my most disappointing team this year, and I just don't know what to say about them. And then a snowy game, nonetheless, again. Bills beat the Falcons 29-15 in the snow. It was 15-14 Falcons at the half. They were very much in this, but eventually Buffalo just pulled away. Matt Ryan looked like he had a touchdown at the end of the fourth quarter, which would have made it more interesting, a touchdown, but nonetheless, it was not to be. Buffalo wins here against Atlanta. I have to check on something. Sorry, one sec, but right back. Okay, sorry about that, but back in. Um, so yeah, Bills hold on versus Falcons, and again, as I mentioned earlier, the division is still up for grabs between the Bills and the Patriots come Week 18. No Jimmy G, Trey Lance filled in nicely. The 49ers win against Texans 23-7. Trey Lance didn't do a lot, but he stayed the course for the 49ers and did not shy away. Again, the offense only scoring 23, but that defense so wrong. They still have to beat the Rams to win the division, but or not the division, but make the playoffs. But we'll see. Should be interesting for week 18. Chargers got back on their horse and beat the horse. The Broncos 34-13. Chargers, Justin Herbert now has the most touchdowns in a single season for a quarterback for the Chargers. 35. And so is next Sunday night against the Raiders. Win or go home. Big game. Rivalry game. Could ask for more. Rams battled adversity, but they came back. Beat Ravens in Baltimore 20-19. It was a game-winning touchdown by OBJ with around a minute left. OBJ, 4 touchdowns, or 4 or 5, but either way, he's orchestrated nicely for Rams offense. Cooper Kupp had another solid day. Has over 1,800 yards. We'll see. With a big game, he could break Calvin Johnson's single season receiving record, and also with a big game, could very much crack 2,000 yards in this season. Now, yes, it's the extra week, so people will harp on him for that, but the season is the season. So, Rams control their destiny for the division next week. And then 51-29 Seahawks, could potentially be Russell Wilson's final game in Seattle. It's just, if that's the case, he had a heck of a performance. Lions were just trying to do whatever they could. They're still fighting for pride, so But Seattle prevails. And then the Cardinals got back on track, winning 25-22 over the Cowboys in Jerry World. Again, it still feels like if you take out Washington game on Sunday night, the Cowboys offense still feels in flux. Just feels like something's not right. But Cardinals snapped their 3-game losing streak. Very good for them. They still have a chance to win the NFC West next week if all goes right. And all went right for the Packers who win on Sunday night against the Vikings. They win, Now Kirk Cousins, he tested positive for COVID. This was a must-win game for the Vikings. Stay alive for the playoffs. But, no Kirk Cousins. No being afraid of Sean Madden. So it was pretty much one-way defense for the Packers. And Packers lock up the 1 seed in the NFC and have the bye as the road to the playoffs in the NFC will run through Lambeau again. And then cap off week 17 in Pittsburgh, 26-14. Big Ben's likely final home game in Pittsburgh. It was a mixed bag of emotions because, look, we all know that Big Ben has not done good up to Big Ben standards for this season. And, you hate to see a guy that's put 18 years in the one franchise and looks like it may be his last year, or is likely his last year in Pittsburgh. A guy who's personified Pittsburgh. It's just a mixed bag. But they did hear for Ben. And the Steelers still alive in the playoffs. They faced the Ravens on Sunday. And, the winner of that could very well. Now, the Jags have to beat the Colts depending on that game. And then that would open the door for the winner for Pittsburgh and Baltimore to make the playoffs. But it'll be a tough ask. But also, though, TJ Watt had a hell of a day. Hell of a game. 4 sacks on Baker Mayfield. is now one sack behind Michael Strahan's record of 22 and a half. It's crazy. We thought for many years JJ, his older brother, may break Strahan's record. And twice he had 20 sack seasons for JJ. But, meaningful game in Baltimore. He could very well break that record of Strahan's. And if he didn't prove he's the defensive player of the year, I don't know what will. I don't know what will. But TJ Watt is the defensive player of the year. Simple as that. Well, that was week 17. Now in the books. 13-3 for picks in week 17. So pretty good. Was perfect in the opening window because I changed my pick from the Colts to the Raiders. But, wrong about Cleveland, wrong with Denver, wrong about Arizona. So, yeah. 13-3, so good for week 17. Now, last week of the regular season, let's get going. So, 2 games on Saturday, 14 on Sunday. So, very intriguing, very intriguing. All but 2 games have playoff meaning. So, good to see. But we start off week 18 with the Chiefs. They go to Mile High on Saturday to play the Broncos. Chiefs still fighting for that 1 seed in the AFC. They need some help on Sunday, but I got them winning here, 30-17 in Mile High. The Broncos, yeah, it's gonna be a long day, I think. But now the Broncos can make it competitive, love to play spoiler, but there's that. Then Saturday night, Cowboys going to Philly. Cowboys have wrapped up the NFCs. Philly has locked up a wild card. By the way, Chiefs were 9.5-point favorites going to Denver, so they cover. Or I have them covering. But so Cowboys out of contention now for the 1 seed with the Packers wrapping it up. Still, so Eagles are likely either going to be the 7th seed or the 6th seed. So, being either Arizona or the Rams will be the 5th seed. I would rather play the Eagles, if I was the Cowboys, then the Rams or the Cardinals. So in that aspect, I see them winning here. Although I don't think they'll cover 24-20 in Philly. So then we got Sunday. So Packers wrapped up the 1 seed going to Detroit. I doubt we'll see Aaron Rodgers. I doubt we'll see most of the starters in Detroit. Detroit is still fighting. They're still fighting. Um, I bet they aim to end the season on a high note. With that, Packers 3-point favorites. I got Detroit winning here 28-17. At least end the season on a high note for Detroit. So then we got the Colts. This is intriguing for Pittsburgh and Baltimore. But I got the Colts winning here 26-14 in Jacksonville. They clinch a playoff berth with the win here. Colts were 15-point favorites, but I don't have them covering. 50 points is a lot, but yeah. So then we got Washington going to the Giants. Both teams have been eliminated from playoff contention. Washington 6.5-point favorites. Better coach, better team, more suited to end on a high note. Washington wins and covers 20-10. So then we got Chicago going to Minnesota to end the year. Minnesota 2.5-point favorites. Which means that if they were playing against Chicago or neutral field, Chicago would be favored. I mean, okay. Minnesota's the better team, but Chicago is still trying. The way I see it, Chicago is still fighting hard for Matt Nagy. And to wrap up the year, Vikings, I don't know, after eliminating I'm going with Chicago to win here 21-17. So then we got Carolina going to Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay, 8-point favorites. Again, with Packers clinching the 1 seed, it's interesting for the Rams. Or wait, the Rams are still fighting for the division, but Tampa Bay and Dallas, who have wrapped up their divisions. So, I would rather you would rather face the Saints, 49ers, or the Eagles than the Rams or the Cardinals. So with that, Bucks will fight win here 34-17 against Carolina. So then we got Patriots going to Miami. Patriots 6.5-point favorites. Patriots still have a chance at not only the division, but the 1 seed if all goes well. So very much still fighting. So Patriots win here, although the Dolphins cover 27-24. Patriots win. Then we got the Saints, who are fighting for playoff spot in the NFC. They go to Atlanta. Excuse me. Saints 4.5-point favorites. The urgency. I don't know with Atlanta, so I'm going with Saints win here 23-16. They cover. Have to see about Rams and San Francisco then. So then we got the Titans, who with a win here will wrap up the 1 seed. We'll have to see about Derrick Henry. Their discussion about him practicing this week, so we'll see about that. Titans 10.5-point favorites. They're fighting for the 1 seed, and they gotta have a bad taste in their mouth from what happened earlier this season. So Titans win 31-16 in Houston. What a way to possibly end it for Big Ben. Steelers go to Baltimore. Baltimore 4.5-point favorites. Baltimore has lost 5 straight. They look good last week versus the Rams, but just wilted late. Steelers, just something with them. Just something. And they win here 22-17 in Baltimore. So then we got Jets going to Buffalo. Buffalo 17.5-point favorites. Still fighting for the division. I'd say the Jets cover, but Buffalo still pulls out the victory 28-17. They win these. So we got Cincinnati going to Cleveland. Cincinnati still fighting for the division. It was announced today that Baker will go shoulder surgery. Case Keenum will start. Cincy still fighting for the 1 seed. Just want to check here, but I have them winning here. Close one. 23-21 over Cleveland, although Cleveland's favored 2.5. So then we got the 49ers going to the Rams. Rams 4.5-point favorites. Rams with a win could not only win the division, but boost the Saints into the playoffs potentially. Something about the 49ers. The way they play the Rams is just interesting, but I don't see the Rams laying off the gas pedal. 30-23 against 49ers. And continue fight for the NFC West. Cardinals host the Seahawks. Cardinals 6.5-point favorites. Again, depending on that game, Cardinals can still win the NFC West. But I think this will be a shootout. 31-26. Cardinals win. Although Seahawks barely cover. Then the last game of the regular season in Vegas. Chargers versus the Raiders. Win or go home. Winner goes to the playoffs. Loser stays home. Raiders 3-game win streak. Chargers dismantling the Broncos. 2.5-point favorites. I like Herbert, but Chargers just too inconsistent. I don't know with them. I think this will be close though. 23-20. Raiders win. Just win. And they make it to the playoffs. Just want to check here because I don't want post too many upsets. But see. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, seems good. But yeah, finalized for picks. Although I do have one asterisk game. Bears, Vikings. But see how that goes. But yeah, those are my final picks for the NFL regular season. So obviously I'll still do the playoffs, but yeah, so with that, so in the grand perspective, if all these picks come true, just speculate, but if these picks were to come true, then Titans would be the 1 seed, Chiefs would be the 2 in the AFC, Bengals would have the 3 seed, Bills would win the division, Patriots would be 5, Raiders would be the 6th seed, and Colts would be the 7th seed. So, unfortunately, Big Ben or the Ravens, that would be the last we see Big Ben versus the Ravens. Or last game, rather. And then the NFC. So, these picks would be Packers 1 seed, Rams 2 seed, Bucks 3 seed, Cowboys 4, Cardinals 5, Saints 6, and Philly 7. So very, very interesting. But those are picks, final picks of the NFL regular season. But nonetheless, that's the episode for you guys. Covered a lot today for the podcast. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Did as well. For episode number 81. But again, hope everyone's still having a good start for the new year, 2022. But thank you all. Be safe. Be back next week with Sports Movie Topics, episode 82. And then later this week, I have 3 pro wrestling reviews being wrestling on Wednesday, Friday, and Saturday. So, much cover there on the podcast. But I'm Ajoe21love. I'm getting out of here. Thank you all. Be safe. Peace.